as blind people or disabled people in general living in a sighted world, you know we have to work harder than our counterparts. In especially the industries where we're not locked into 7-year grants and, millions of dollars of research funding and all this. So we have to work a little harder to present ourselves as someone who people would really love to work with. If you don't find what you love as someone who's disabled, it'll really suck. Do what you love. And then it doesn't feel like work.
Hoby Wedler, welcome to the See-Through Podcast.
Lance, thank you so much, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's hot here in New York right now.
Is it?
It's very hot, yeah. It's been a very hot summer. How's it been out in California?
It's hot as hell. I mean, it's been, and literally, in California, we're not used to this. So a lot of folks don't have air conditioning units, and it's been hard.
Wow. And which part of California are you in?
So I'm up north of San Francisco. I'm in Petaluma, California, just north of San Francisco, about 45 miles.
Okay. You're an entrepreneur, but you're also you have a Ph.D. So you're a doctor.
I do.
You're Dr. Hoby.
Yeah.
So you have a lot going on. You do a lot with wine. You're a TEDx speaker. Your resume is stacked. I follow you on Instagram, and a lot of your content is just very interesting and educational, but not boring. So that's why I brought you on. And I thought, my listeners would really love to hear about all your takes and experiences and what you're offering to the world in terms of your businesses and outlook with science.
So, man, it's such a great question. Thank you so much for, first of all, inviting me on. I'm very excited to be here today. In terms of business, I have a few companies that do a lot of fun work. So the one that you connected with is the one that I'm most sort of tied to right now, which is called Wedler Group. And that's actually my sort of holdings company. It's where I do all my work in terms of the winery tastings, the tasting in the dark events that I do, things like this podcast, and all my social media outreach and all that is through myself and through that company. But I also have another company called Emotitech, Emotitech, which I'm a minor partner in. And we basically do product and experience design where our focus is not what people are thinking and what they tell us, but what we can glean from their brains. So looking at not, hey, did you enjoy this experience? Or, hey, what did you think of this latch? But actually using electroencephalographs, galvanic skin response, and all sorts of things to really understand how and what people are thinking. And to me, as a blind person, I think it's very interesting to think about the ways that we connect with things and how can we sort of lift that experience of design in everything that we do. Also got a company called SensePoint Design. We do a lot of marketing and communications for anyone in the nonprofit world, and we're very excited about that too. We work only with nonprofits who help folks with disabilities. So I love that.
So you're a part of all these companies. You describe yourself as an entrepreneur, and they're kind of like you mentioned as a blind man. That's kind of your impetus for SensePoint and wanting to help these nonprofits, and then also that's another reason why your companies kind of involve the senses. Would that be true?
Everything I do involves a sensory input, from how does the paper feel from a brochure that we print through SensePoint to how does your wine glass feel in your hand. Yeah, everything has to do with an ability to understand the senses. And quite frankly, in SensePoint, in the marketing communications company, For me, that is more my deeper relationships with the client themselves.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's kind of a way for you to use your specialties to help nonprofits like Lighthouse for the Blind and other nonprofits. So it's basically, these companies usually have to work with these marketing companies who aren't really up to speed on everything in the blindness and disability world.
Don't want to say they're not up to speed. They just may not know what's out there.
Okay. It's not their specialty.
Yeah. And where I specialize is I know what's out there. I know what they're doing, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And before all this, you have a Ph.D. in chemistry, right?
Yeah, I was born blind, man. And my parents are incredible role models for me and always have been. And have always pushed me to just do the next thing well. And that's what they do. And that's, it was a high school chemistry instructor who made me fall in love with the subject. And then I just said, let me do this for what I do. Like, this is amazing. And she was funny because she did not believe that as a blind person, I could do what I wanted to do in chemistry. But I went to her classroom during the second week of the second semester. It was a cold January morning in California. Of course, nothing to what you face in Brooklyn, nothing similar. But I went into her classroom and I said, I get and understand and appreciate the fact that you think blind folks can't necessarily study chemistry. But nobody can see atoms. And chemistry is a cerebral science. And from that point, she became a total ally. And, I went to college. I got my degrees in chemistry and also U.S. history because I love that. And I love storytelling about United States history. Anytime you want to talk about that, we can. And I got a minor in mathematics and then ended up thinking I was going to study history and interviewing several graduate departments, actually around the state of California, around the country, thinking that history would make a lot more sense than chemistry because I wouldn't need so much hands-on lab assistance, until I met the man who would become my graduate advisor, Dr. Dean Tantillo, who just totally supported me studying chemistry in his lab. And I did that for 2 years as an undergraduate. And after that, I was there as a graduate, and it went great.
What are some obstacles, if someone out there who's living with blindness or has a visual impairment, for them if they want to get into a similar field in the science field? What are some challenges they'll encounter?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of challenges are out there. The biggest one is people not knowing and realizing what you can do. I would say that's the biggest problem as we see it every step of the way. So allowing them to understand your abilities is so important. And you can do that not by showing them, but by telling them, or you can do it by showing them, but don't be harsh. Like, that's my biggest, if I can share nothing more to your listeners, Lance, it's don't be harsh. It's be yourself every step of the way. And if you're going to be blind and you're going to ask for help, do it in a kind, benign, unassuming way so that you know what you're getting every single time.
That's great advice.
Find lab assistants. Find folks who can work with you, who are sighted, who can work with you in the lab. And let that happen. Let that connect with you. Let it make sense to work with these people, because they're not there. And this is a big thing for me as a blind person. Nobody who's ever helped me is there because I think they need to be there. They're there because I need some eyes and I just need that help. And we get along great, and the relationship is all positive. And I recommend for any one of your listeners who's in a position like this or a similar position, be sure to create that amazing relationship with anyone who helps you. It's so incredibly important. And it might turn into a relationship that's a lot longer than, hey, I'll help you with your labs. It might become a romantic thing. It might become a lifelong thing. Who knows? but just dig into it and don't tell that person you're going to do everything for me. So the reason that I was so successful, Lance, in chemistry is that I just had assistants who were my eyes. That's all they did. And I did everything else with my mind.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into everything you're doing now too, with like your wine tastings in the dark. It seems like you like to be an educator, and you made that point about you can tell someone or you can show them, and you kind of do that still with your companies as well as your experiences with wine tasting.
Anytime I get to speak publicly or deliver a wine tasting, my whole goal is education.
Yeah. And you're great. That. Your TEDx talk, I really enjoyed it. I love your demeanor. You have a really funny sense of humor. Your couple of jokes really landed, made me laugh. But I loved hearing about it, and I recommend everyone to go check it out. I'll have a link in the episode description if you want to check out Hoby's TEDx talk. But it's about the senses and how you made a point in the talk, and you said that there's a statistic that really stuck with me, that for obtaining information about a place, 85 to 90% of obtaining information we use our eyesight, right? Yeah.
Which means we've got another 10 to 15%, for the same information that we might acquire. And that's not enough.
Yeah. And you kind of wanted to kind of implore people to explore using that 10 to 15% that they're not using with their vision, that kind of, yeah.
How does the air smell in your office, around you, or wherever you are? What are you smelling? What are you feeling? What are you sort of hearing? How is your life changing by that 10 to 15%?
Yeah, that's a good point. And in the TEDx talk, you painted a picture about a Napa Valley, winery, and how you were with some friends and they were trying to describe the view,
that hill.
And then you were like, I don't need the description, because you were feeling the ground, you were smelling the air, right. you were feeling the wind blowing, and it was very nice. And I try to do that now. As someone who has a degenerative eye condition, I try to not spend all my attention on visuals. Whenever I feel a nice breeze or I smell something nice, I try to focus on that a little more than I would probably if I didn't have a visual impairment, because I'm trying to factor other senses in more. I'm interested in that. And I think that's probably why your talks, stood out to me, because it's something I'm interested in.
Do you think you're going to go blind eventually?
Well, my mom is legally blind, and she has around 5 degrees of central vision remaining. And her vision is still pretty sharp for the vision remaining. Like, she can still, look on her phone and see a face. So if I follow her trajectory, I will never be, fully blind. But, statistically, I will become legally blind. It's just a matter of when, and that's what's kind of hard to pinpoint.
Can you still drive a car?
I gave up my license.
Good for you.
It depends on where. That's what I tell people. In like a small town with somebody next to me, I could drive a car. In a city, I would never try it. I got it. So it just depends on the location. Yeah.
Love it.
But,
love it.
Sometimes, and I'll get your opinion on this. Sometimes, like, you ask me that question, like, will I be blind? And that's a great question, because I think when people are diagnosed with something like RP, that's where their brain goes. They assume like, oh, I'm diagnosed with this. When in most cases, most people retain, some sense of vision. I think sometimes I have to remind myself that, like, look at my mom's vision and things like that, and just kind of remember that. But I also want to feel like even if I do become fully blind, which there is still statistically a chance of that, you know, with eye condition retinitis pigmentosa, that I will be okay, you know, and that's kind of part of my exploration is I'll be okay no matter what. And that's kind of the point of my podcast and what I'm trying to explore and learn about, you know.
And I'm sure there's stuff that you're also terrified by, and I am too. But it's okay to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to just say, you know, my aunt, who was a devout Buddhist, always said, do what you want to do, and it's okay. And she came up with a movie actually called Only the Mountain Remains on Netflix. And it's on YouTube as well. But her whole thing is she died of ALS. And while she was still alive, she said, yeah, I'm going to die of ALS, but that's okay. And I love that. Like, we can be okay doing whatever we do.
I love that too. You know, it's like, I think people tend to hyper focus on the worst case scenario.
That's it.
And then they don't give it a chance to consider that the best case scenario might happen as well.
That's it.
And I'm all about, you know, wanting to remember and accept that there's a lot of things in life that I just do not control or have control over. And those are the things that I should not worry about because I have no control over those. And, you know, inheriting a retinol disease is one of those things. I have no control over it. And I have, you know, maybe minor control over how it progresses. Like there's things I can do to speed it up, you know, that are unhealthy to my retina. But for the most part, you know, it's going to do what it's going to do. And, you know, I just have to go with the flow and adapt as I go. And try to have like a positive outlook on it. Cause you know, you could have the storm cloud over your head the entire time. Or you could try to have some sunshine, and you know, sometimes a healthy mix of both is good, but I'm trying to lean more into that sunshine, and you seem to do a good job at that. What's your secret?
Man, everything I do is positive. I love just living a positive, open life. You know, my brain can play tricks on me and I can be negative at times, but boy, Lance, the only way I can be successful, that I know how to be successful, is to be totally positive in life and to have that open mindset and that mind that, you know what, we might be blind, but we can do anything we want.
I love it. You mentioned your high school teacher who was kind of a naysayer and was skeptical. You proved her wrong. I'm sure you proved so many people wrong throughout your life. Is that something that you find, I wouldn't want to say find enjoyment in, but you have to be proud of yourself when you do prove people wrong?
Here's the thing. I don't like proving people wrong, and I don't even think I proved her wrong. And maybe I said that incorrectly a minute ago. I showed her what was possible. So I don't consider it proving people wrong. I consider it showing people what's possible and showing them that maybe their misconceptions aren't quite right. You know, that's what I love doing. Is showing people that, hey, if you've got this misconception about me and what I can do, you might not be quite right. And if, for me, for instance, I'll just give you an example. If I were to work with someone that had like some ailment that I didn't know what to do with, let's say it was a leaky stomach wound, let's just say that. And I had to deal with, you know, fixing that and dealing with it. I might not know necessarily what to do, but either I would figure it out or I'd find the person near me in my community to help me figure out how to do that, right? So, and I would come in and I would say, like, because of my blindness, I would say, let's figure this out. Let's understand it. Let's do it together. Let's make this happen, right? And I think that sometimes people who are not blind or who don't have a disability don't necessarily understand what it means to just say, okay, let's step in and figure it out.
And I love that outlook of, not proving people wrong, but just showing them that their misconceptions were wrong.
Yeah, it's. Let me give you another example. It's like, you don't think when I'm sitting with a sales team for Francis Ford Coppola Winery, not including Coppola, but including his sales team, many people from it, I can get up and go to the bathroom. So I got up and someone got up with me and sort of ran towards me. And I said, no. You let me do this. And something as simple as letting them watch you, table of 20 people.
Yeah, just leading by example and owning it. You gotta
just get out there. I don't talk much. Lance, I love talking. But when it comes to what I can do, I just do shit.
Yeah.
And not in a rude way. But I just like to show people, hey, you can do what you want.
Yeah. You walk the walk.
I try to, man.
Yeah. No, that is a great example because, some people would feel like, oh, if I have to, if getting up to go to the bathroom in this meeting, it might, if I have to go at a slower pace than maybe they would to find the bathroom, that it might be perceived as a sign of weakness, when in reality it's a sign of strength, because it's showing that you're comfortable in your own skin and you're willing to be yourself.
Here's how I do it. I mean, man, I might just be a guy that drinks enough martinis that I need to pee too much. So let's just take that into account as well. I'm just a normal dude. But when I get up and go to the bathroom, I say, hey, I've got this. Don't worry about me. You might see me going the wrong way, but I'll be back in a few minutes. And they all just, okay, no problem. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that because it's just owning it and being yourself and, leading by example.
That's it. And letting people also understand that we're not the problem. Our problem is only as big as the disabilities that we face through society, right?
Yeah.
So for me, here's a great example. My washer is great. I'm not going to say the brand because I don't want to poo-poo them. I love my washer, but when I turn one of them off, it goes back to 0. When I turn the other one off, it stays on the settings that I was on. And I, without my sighted partner, cannot use those damn machines. So I feel disabled by my washer, but it's not me who's disabled. Does that make sense?
I see.
So I'm only as disabled as the things and the services and the products around me make me.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're only as disabled as how inaccessible the world is around you.
You got it.
And what are some other barriers, in terms of accessibility that you may find yourself frustrated with or you've found workarounds with?
Here's the perfect one. Bus stops.
Okay.
They should, some do, but most don't. They should all have a QR code at iPhone level where I can scan and see where that bus is going. They all write it on the screen, and they pay a lot of money for screens that change color and show where the bus is going and all that. But that would be amazing if I just had a QRC code that I could scan on my phone with the camera, which I'm very good at, and then see where the bus is going.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Another example, for me, it would be something like when I'm walking through a busy intersection or a busy area and people say, oh my gosh, do you need help? And then they assume that I need them to literally drag me through whatever I'm doing. So it's this like, do you need help? And how can we explain that to people? A third example is the airport security line. Sometimes we're working with an assistant when we're by ourselves who's pushing us through and really doesn't understand who we are. And sometimes people know exactly what to do with me. Oh yeah, I've dealt with blind people, no problem. But sometimes it's this big abyss. Can you put his ID in? Can you help him do this? And I'm a Ph.D. chemist. I'm a smart dude. And I'm a totally capable dude. Talk to me, right?
Yes.
And when they do talk to me, it's this weird thing of, can he go through the body scan? Yeah, but I don't want to. That's why I'm PreCheck. Right?
Yeah.
It's a funny thing.
You find PreCheck to be accessible?
I like it. Not clear. I'm not talking about clear. I'm talking about just getting in the PreCheck line.
Yeah, TSA PreCheck.
What do you find issues with there?
No, I don't have any issues. I was just curious to know, because I feel like that's never talked about enough. Would you recommend to people, living, who are low vision or blind, to sign up for TSA PreCheck?
Totally.
Is it helpful?
If they can, sure. Do it.
Yeah.
It saves time. You don't have to take your shoes off. It's great.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I'm not in bad shape. I can take my shoes off and I can do whatever I want. But hey, if I don't have to, that's fantastic.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask you, because what I love about you and your work and the themes you talk about is you're kind of a gap bridger. And what I mean by that is you don't speak specifically to blind people, and you also don't speak specifically to sighted people either. You're just educating anyone who's willing to listen and wants to hear your perspective. And
thank you for that. That means a lot to me to hear you say that. Yeah.
And in the same way with your businesses and your work in as a chemist, I'm sure you're working with a lot of, able-bodied, sighted people. And then I'm also sure, since you're affiliated with a lot of nonprofits, I'm sure you have a lot of friends who are disabled, and you can talk to anyone, befriend anyone. And totally. I wanted to know what's your advice for that if you're someone who's disabled and wants to have, more friends, or if you're someone who's not disabled and you have a coworker or someone in your office and you want to know how to just become friends with people. I just want to know your advice on that.
Lance, that's a great question. And I'm going to take the second part of that question first.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're disabled or not. So let's just start there. But if you're not disabled, I just recommend doing what you love doing in every place you can show up. So I met with it's funny, I do some coaching myself. Okay. And I met with a wonderful woman who's totally able-bodied and the whole thing. And she mentioned that, she would do her Pilates class and then go to the bar afterward in her Pilates clothes, and nobody would talk to her. But this was a bar where a lot of highfalutin people went and yada, yada, yada. And she said, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to wear a suit, right? I'm going to look good. Yeah. And she showed up to the bar with a suit on. Everybody wanted to talk to her. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who are you with? What's your deal? And she explained it to them. And of course, all these people from 6 years ago are past friends. So what I would say to anyone without a disability is, number one, and this is true for anyone with a disability too, number one, look good. Look like someone you would want to talk to. And number two, get out there and talk. Just be willing to say, if you hear a conversation going on or see it, hey, here's who I am. What are you doing? And to someone who is specifically disabled, I would say the most important trick to everything that I do is just not being afraid to say, hey, how you doing? My best connections I've met, one group is on airplanes. Okay. And the next group is in the bar. Nice. So get out there, whether you're disabled or not. I know so many people who have disabilities. It makes me so sad. They sit at home. Get out there. Just go to the bar. Man, if you don't drink, go to the Black Bear Diner, go to the restaurant and talk to people and just expose yourself. And I know that's really hard. And as someone who's totally blind in a sighted world with a Ph.D. in chemistry and a lot of other stuff that I'm doing, I'm totally fine being out of my comfort zone. And I understand that it might be challenging for you to be out of your comfort zone, dear listener. But reach out to me if you need to and do it. And just step out there and say hi to one person and see how that goes.
Yeah, it's just you got to put yourself out there. I think, your advice was very practical. It was like, look good, dress sharp, talk to people, put yourself out there. I mean, it's very practical, simple advice, but sometimes the human mind likes to overcomplicate things.
That's it.
And then the things that are practical go out the window. And then you're trying to create this grand scheme in your mind of how to do things when maybe it is just as simple as put on a nice outfit and go somewhere where people are.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And just talk to people and see what comes of it. Because you can't be, here's my thing. I know Tinder and all these things prove me wrong. You can't be the best person that you want to be unless you just try it.
100%.
And see what it means to get out there and talk to people. When you're at a concert, talk to the person next to you. Every car that drives by you, every person on the bus near you, all those people have crazy stories. And if we can work to help them feel better about themselves and maybe even tell those stories, that's when we're powerful.
100%. Yeah, everyone does have a story. I've said that. And I told you about before the call how I went out to the Enchanted Hills camp.
Tell me about that.
And I did a presentation on podcasting. And that was what I wanted to basically, that was my message to the campers was, hey, everyone's story is interesting. And if you feel like yours isn't, you're wrong. Anybody can have a podcast. And you could pick somebody at random and interview them. And there's something interesting there. I can guarantee it.
Amen. Amen. And when I'm working on a book right now, by the way, called It's Not What It Looks Like. And it's nowhere near publishing, so let's not put any link to it in the show notes. But
okay,
It's Not What It Looks Like is a book about basically stories from my life of people who if I was sighted, I would probably not have talked to, who now that I'm blind, or because I'm blind, I totally talk to and I don't judge. And think about that.
That's a very interesting premise. What made you want to focus on that and write a book about that?
Because I've met so many people that others would not normally sit down and talk to, and I couldn't see them. So I was sitting on benches or planes or trains next to them, and I just started chatting. And that's where I would say 40% of my business has come from, are connections that nobody else would have made.
I mean, that's incredible advice, and it's almost baffling for me to hear that, because as someone like myself, I can be pretty introverted. I tend to keep to myself in public spaces, especially on planes. But who knows? Maybe I'm missing out.
Put a sleep shade on and ask people what they're doing, who they are, why they exist.
Yeah.
I had a flight. I'll point out my good friend Mike Haney.
Okay.
He's has been in the surfing industry for a long time, and now is in the medical device sales industry. But I sat down on a flight to Houston on Monday, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a really long flight. I don't really want to do it. There was no Wi-Fi, so the Wi-Fi wasn't working. It was like, okay, I'm not going to get any work done. And I just started chatting to the guy next to me, and I learned his whole life story. I learned a ton about surfing. I learned a ton about diabetes medical devices because that's what he works in. And I've got a friend now. We're exchanging each other's numbers, and we're fast friends, and we're chatting together.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing because I believe it or not, it's like I have a podcast and I can come across social, but I like I mentioned just a couple minutes before, I'm pretty introverted.
Sure.
And I've noticed that as I age, it's harder for me to make friends for some reason.
Interesting. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 34.
Okay, I'm 37.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is harder when you're not surrounded by all those people in college. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, a lot of my best friends were friends that I've known since high school or college.
Amen.
So it's translating it to going out and about. Also, maybe a problem I run into is I work a lot and I work from home, so I'm isolated. And then I also run this podcast on the side of that, just for fun.
Nice.
So a lot of my time is spent in isolation, on my computer.
You're okay. You'll get out there and meet people.
I need to get out there more.
Go to the bar and have a beer and talk.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your day-to-day life? What's your profession?
I am a video editor.
I love it.
Which is strange to say, but like I mentioned before, I'm not legally blind, and I especially when I was in college, I wasn't really experiencing much peripheral vision loss.
Yeah.
So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna go to school for something I love, which was I studied film and filmmaking. And then after college, I worked as a videographer and editor for like some small advertising agencies.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? My vision's diminishing enough to where being a videographer isn't ideal anymore. I'm just going to edit. And then that's when I relocated here to New York City so I can use the subway. I quit driving, and now I just simply video edit because, I can just use my central vision to, see what I need to see on the computer screen.
And you get wherever you need to go on the subway.
Exactly, on the subway or
you
Uber
can get to Manhattan
or ferry.
easily.
I can, yeah. I can.
Nice.
And, I'm married too, so maybe a lot of that social pressure to go out and meet people, it kind of goes away a little bit, It's like, well, me and my wife are watching a movie tonight, so I don't need to see anybody.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Is your wife social?
She can be. It depends on the environment, if it's her environment or not, But
what's funny about my partner is he's the best person I ever met, and he's my business partner and my life partner.
Okay.
But he doesn't love the talking to people thing. And that's what I love doing.
I can relate to that.
So he can hang as an introvert, and I can do everything we need to do as an extrovert, and we get everything done.
It seems to me like introverts, they pair nicely with extroverts, talking about wine. I know you in terms of pairing, because it's like you almost need the extrovert to convince the introvert, hey, come out. Hey, I know you're not doing anything. Come on, let's go.
And sometimes I drag poor Justin along to things that maybe he's like, do I really want to go? I'm like, yeah, come on, let's go. That's who I am. So I think that's a really important thing. And I think that's why opposites attract for me. Like I want to talk to everybody and get to know their story and understand them and who they are and all this stuff. But I get for you, you're more of an introvert.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So I relate to Justin.
Yeah.
You mind if I ask you about that, in terms of romance? Because that's a popular thing that people are interested in, people who have visual impairments or disabilities.
Yeah, man.
Do you have any advice for how to put yourself out there, in that way?
I have very, very strategic and simple advice. Do what it is that makes sense with someone who gets you. So I was not a gay man at all, and I'm still totally bisexual. That's what I consider myself as.
Okay.
But I was expecting to be with a woman, and then Justin just presented himself. I've been friends with him since elementary school, so for 30 years now. And he presented himself as someone who I just not only was a great partner, but was my best friend. And it just made sense. And I'm not saying I settled for something lower than what I should have had, but quite the opposite.
Yeah.
He's the best person for me because we just get it done together. He does all the stuff I hate. I do all the stuff he hates, and we just roll, man, and we get it done. And we do all our travel together. So what I would say in terms of romance is just find someone who gets you, who understands you, where your disability is not who defines you. I mean, with Justin, my blindness is like, I've asked him before, he's like, yeah, it's like you have brown eyes. I don't give a shit. Whatever. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And we get it done. So my whole advice for anyone romantically is find the person who you click with and don't settle quick enough that you don't identify that. Make sure you can identify that. And by the way, this is advice for anyone, disabled, non-disabled people alike. Make sure you align with that person before you commit.
100%. And how has the process been? And I think that's great advice. How has the process been for Justin? You know, you mentioned he's known you since middle school, you said?
Elementary school. He met me when I was 6 years old.
Wow. You know, so I guess he's had a lot of time to learn how to adapt to having, you know, a partner who's blind. But what about people who haven't had a lot of a time, like, you know, in terms of guiding, you know, their partner, you know, through public spaces or anything like that?
All you need to do, I've got a great answer to this, and thank you for asking that great question. It's very strategic and good. Don't be afraid to say, I'm here if you need me, but if you can do things on your own, I don't care. Like, just be there. And for me, even to this day with Justin, we get along great. We travel a lot together. I don't love him grabbing my arm and sort of pushing me places. So I always take his arm when we're walking through airports and pulling our bags behind us and, you know, whatever the case may be. And the most important thing you can do in a romantic relationship or in a business relationship, I happen to have a partner that's one and the same for both, is to just say, this is who I am. This is what I need. Don't leave me behind. And I'll make sure I stick with you.
Great advice. Yeah, I think what I want to add to that is direct communication, you know, because it's like you can't read people's minds, and, you know, sometimes it's like you just have to say that.
I can't see their face. Exactly.
You have to be in sync, you know. And I love that line of, I'm here if you need me, but if you do as much as you want to do without my help or with my help, basically, to know that both options are there.
And Lance, as I study chemistry, that was my whole thing in lab. It's like, I am here. I am the one learning. You are, thank God, helping me. And I will let you know where I need you.
Yeah, that is great advice.
It's my deal.
It seems like sometimes, like when I'm guiding my mom somewhere, and I've guided friends in the past too, you know, who are cane users. I'll admit it. Sometimes my patience, it's like, because it's something I'm not used to doing. I can get my patience can get thin sometimes in terms of, you know, navigating, especially busy areas in New York City. What advice would you give me, you know, in terms of increasing patience for guiding, you know, people?
I would say everybody pretend you were in the shoes of your mom or someone you're guiding, and think about how you would feel if you were the one who someone like you lost patience on. And think about, like, would you want to feel like someone who just totally lost patience with you? Like, would you want to feel the way you feel you treat your mom when you lose patience if it were you? Because you might lose all your sight, my friend, and you might be them.
Yeah.
Just remember, we're going to get through this.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, you just got to...
And pretend your feet are in the shoes of your mom. Let's just use her as an example. How would that feel?
Yeah, it wouldn't feel good. Wouldn't it feel nice? I can be good at disguising it. You know, I won't like outright, you know, be rude or say anything mean, but I can feel it, you know, internally.
Mentally,
you know,
just take that in and think about, how would I feel if?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're a great role model. And I love what you're doing.
Dude,
across the board.
I just love helping people understand their full potential. Like, I don't care if whatever happens to me. I just want people to understand that they're amazing they're remarkable, and they can do whatever they want to do. Everybody, I want to say this to your listeners, everybody has a superpower. Every single person, right? We just have to figure out what that superpower is and let you work in your place of genius in everything that you do, in every way that you step out.
And you know what? That's a great point that I should end on that point, but I'm going to ask one follow-up question to that point.
Do it.
For someone who is trying to find what their superpower is, for example, you found chemistry, you fell in love with that. For someone who hasn't quite found or discovered something that they're passionate about yet, what advice would you give someone to help kind of explore things to find that passion?
Let me open that up a little bit. Chemistry was my passion, and I still am passionate about chemistry. And I use chemistry in the work that I do today, for sure. But chemistry is not actually my passion. My passion always has been teaching and getting people excited about things they didn't know they were excited about before. And the only reason, Lance, I got a Ph.D. in chemistry was to teach people. And I realized that I had to make my lectures way less accessible to me and way more accessible to my students, which meant not having fun teaching. It was a chore. It was a task. Now I'm able to teach through my tastings in the dark. I'm going to be launching a podcast, probably ask you some questions there about that. What is my advice for folks who are trying to find their passion? Here's what I would say. Try a multitude of things. If you think you are a seamster or a seamstress, try sewing. How does it feel? Try sewing 10 scarves in a day. Does that make you happy? If you think you are someone who belongs talking to people like I am, go to the Rotary Club, join it, see how that goes. If you think you're someone who likes working with your hands, try becoming a plumber or electrician and see what happens. But as blind people or disabled people in general living in a sighted world, we have to work harder than our counterparts. Especially the industries where we're not locked into 7-year grants and, millions of dollars of research funding and all this. So we have to work a little harder to present ourselves as someone who people would really love to work with.
So get out there, try things. Think about what you're naturally kind of drawn to, what kind of pulls you towards something.
Yeah.
And then have the understanding that you're going to have to work harder than, the average person would.
That's it. And then
you just got to go for it.
Go for it and do it. And this is another thing that I would say, especially if you don't find what you love as someone who's disabled, it'll really suck. Do what you love. And then it doesn't feel like work.
That's a great point. Very to the point. I appreciate that. That's very honest.
Sorry.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. If you're disabled and you do something you don't enjoy, you're working harder for something you don't even enjoy.
That's it.
Well, that's a great message to end on. I think that's inspiring and will get people pumped up and riled up.
Can I throw some great words out at the end?
Yeah, throw out whatever you want. I'd love to hear it.
Everybody needs to have an open mindset. No matter what you do, no matter who you are, you need to, number one, believe in yourself. Number two, don't compare yourself to other people. You are your own self. Number three, break every challenge that comes your way into little bitty pieces. When I started my Ph.D. program at UC Davis, I looked at that mountain the first night of grad school and went, holy shit, how am I going to climb that? And I built little steps into the mountain every way, starting with just getting my first problem set submitted for my class that I was taking, all the way up to the dissertation. Number 4, be consistent. Do something you love so you can be consistent at that and successful at that. And number 5, don't be afraid to fail. So here are my pearls of wisdom at the end here. You are amazing. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not amazing. Everything you stand for is amazing. And you just need to find your superpower so you can show the world how you are amazing. Number 2, you are enough. You as an individual are enough. And as long as you do your personal best, you will continue to be enough. And don't worry about competing with great, crazy people out there who do way more than you do and who you think, if only I could be this person. You yourself are enough. And number 3, and the most important point of all, you are not alone. You have people around you to support you and drive you forward. And if you are alone, please reach out. And you won't be alone anymore because I'll be your cheerleader. Let me know. The point is, have a positive, open mindset to everything you do. And everything else will be fine.
Beautifully said, and beautiful advice, and
thanks, Lance.
Perfectly said. I can see why you're a professional speaker. But yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, nor could I. But yeah, it's very well said, and appreciate you throwing that in there because I think someone out there needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. I think. Right. If you don't think you needed to hear it, maybe you needed a reminder. Sometimes you just need a reminder. But yeah, I love that, and I think your spirit of wanting to teach, I totally get that and respect that. And I kind of got a little taste of it when I did the presentation and at the Enchanted Hills camp. And then I also did a hands-on activity with some of the teenage campers where I set up like a podcasting station and I let a few of the campers basically have a podcast with each other and record each other.
That's amazing. And did you put it out on your show?
Yeah, it's out on YouTube. I can send it to you.
Send me the link.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it, but I had so much fun teaching that and seeing that kind of spark of joy, that kind of, seeing it happen in real time. I
love that so much. Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's something that I wasn't really counting on.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. And isn't that a beautiful place up there?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I'm going to call Karen and thank her for the introduction right now.
Okay. Yeah, she'll be happy about it. She sent me your podcast interview. By the way, everyone listening, Hoby has his own podcast, or he's a podcast host.
I'm a host for the National Industries for the Blind.
Yeah, and it's very well done.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Heard and Empowered is a podcast.
So go check that out. I'll have a link in the show description if you want to check out that. But I that's where I discovered you. Was your interview with Sharon, the Lighthouse for the Blind, and Visually Impaired San Francisco.
Love it.
So yeah, there's a lot there to if you're interested in learning more about Hoby. There's a lot more out there. Definitely follow Hoby on Instagram. You post a lot of really good, interesting, educational content, a lot of travel content,
I appreciate
a lot of stuff involving your businesses. But you have so much, to explore and dive into. Definitely give Hoby a follow, and you will not be disappointed. It's great stuff.
Thank you, Lance. You're the best.
And you'll learn something.
You're the best.
It's rare when to learn something these days on social media.
Thank you.
But is there anything else that you wanted to plug or add?
Hold your head high, be positive, reach out if you need anything.
Yeah, and Hoby means that. I can tell.
I do mean it.
Well, I think that concludes our chat, Hoby, and
thank you so much.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure talking to you, man, and your energy is contagious, and I'm going to be thinking about a lot of what you said in my day-to-day life.
I'm going to be thinking about our chat too. So thank you so much. And By the way, Lance found me on Instagram and just reached out, and it was such an honor to hear from him. So anyone who wants to chat, reach out, you know.
Yeah, I've said that in the past. You would be surprised who will answer you if you contact them.
That's
a lot of people are like, oh, no one's going to respond to my DM. No one's going to respond to my email. You would be very surprised. So put yourself out there, communicate with people. You might surprise yourself.
Lance, what an honor to be on the show. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see more of you and meet more of you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Take care.
You take care too. We'll see you soon.